Good.
Yeah. So I applied this program like in 2016, but I didn't get in, and now I apply again. So this time it worked.
And your background again,
Yes. So no, not really. I studied advertising and economics as my bachelor, and for my master I did communications. So it's more on analyzing people's behaviors and how to, and trying to convince them to, for a marketing purpose.
because I have some background in economics. When I was doing my doctoral work, I did a minor in economics.
Oh, I'm not really good at economics. I found
I
it.
did a study in Minnesota of what was called AmeriCorps, which is the National Volunteer Initiative, and I did a 5-year study with students from the university. It was a graduate course on evaluation, and we did 3 years of cost-benefit analysis.
Oh, okay. Of that AmeriCorps.
Of AmeriCorps, yeah.
Oh. We don't have such national volunteering programs like the Peace Corps or AmeriCorps in China. We do have some, but it's not very well known.
How old for the China Youth League? It's kind of equivalent to our Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts.
I joined it, but they don't really have a programs going on. Someone organized that you just join. I don't think so. So it's pretty like the Communist Party. You join it, and then it's a symbol. And then you don't have really solid programs.
Just writing about it in the introduction for my section on this Asian research. It started in 1921, and it changed after the revolution.
Yeah. It's more government demonstration, I guess.
Supposedly they have some interest in vocational skills for young people too, so there were some jobs to
When I joined this youth league, it was 20 years ago. Yeah, when I was in my primary school, we don't really have so many. Not as I remember, we don't have really interesting programs going on. We just have this red scarf, and then nothing else. I think maybe things changed.
There's the article we did on the program with the elementary schools around Beijing Normal. As I said, where the kids were working with the blind, trying to get the service animals into taxi cabs and into the metro.
Which elementary school did you remember?
They work with several of them, I believe.
Oh.
The woman Daisy, that's her English name. Chinese name, yeah. She's working on her doctorate in London, in England.
Oh, in which subject?
In education. Related to service learning.
So the project with Beijing Normal University, it's they evaluate, the program is about elementary students help the blinded.
How what?
The elementary students help the blinded.
Correct. But their goal was to get the service animals, to allow the blind to be able to take their service animals into a store.
The blind dogs, the dogs that.
The service dogs.
So the students will help the blind people in terms of how to be familiar with the dogs.
They interviewed some blind people, find challenges, word problems. And I have actual curriculum in the elementary school for service learning.
Okay.
Where they write in their journals and kind of various topics.
Is there a way that I can find more information on that project?
Yeah, well, there's an article. I have to get to the name of the book.
Because I'm wondering like, how they embed it. Is it like a school program, right? So it's embedded in a curriculum. So which subject do they? Is it like?
Well, language development, as they were writing, in their social studies.
Social studies.
They're supposed to have a whole curriculum. So I can, I'll get you the chapter. The editors of the book in the University of Minnesota School of Social Work. Their academic topic has been civic education.
So is it like a collaboration between the University of Minnesota and Beijing Normal University?
No, they're putting together, they had many different authors. They asked me because they knew I was working.
Oh.
So we submitted.
Ah, okay.
There are 4 authors. Myself and 3 Chinese.
And the 3 Chinese are from the Beijing Normal University. And did you work with them on this blind project?
We worked on some other projects, but that's the one that they did for the argument. You can get a chance when you go back to see their curriculum.
Yeah.
It's actually fairly structured in each grade level.
So it's across grade, this project. It's not only within one grade.
The service learning program includes many grades.
Yeah, but the one with Beijing Normal University is that these students, elementary students, are from different grades.
I think this project, the kids were 5th grade.
Oh.
I'll get you the name of the book.
Thank you.
So we were interviewing people about what?
Oh.
Is this an interview?
Yeah. Am I allowed to put my recorder? Okay. Because I couldn't really note down because we're eating and I couldn't really note down what I was thinking is that.
We can talk after we eat if you want.
Yeah, sure. I was thinking, I think people's stories, why they get into service learning and what they have been through and, what they think about service learning before and recent, and how they have changed out of this occupation or out of what they are doing is something that really interests me. And I think it's now something like, I really like the way that you put in your book, in your life stories. So I think it's more relevant if the readers, really see their life journeys in something descriptions or some like the news, some kind of news stories about service learning. I don't think that it will catch people's attention, the Chinese readers. But if I link them to, like Rob, to a real person, so your experiences and your observation and your transformation out of this career, and then I think it's more.
And I can send you a link to probably one of my better articles, which was in the Michigan Journal in 2000, 20 years ago. It was called Science or Storytelling.
Yes, I read that.
Did you read it? Oh.
But no, I want to. I have to request to you for like a PDF.
Oh,
I
okay.
read titles, but then I couldn't download it because no way.
Yeah, well, there's a link. Somebody just asked me about it, and I found a link because I didn't have a copy of it.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I have a copy of the book. I can let you have that. But
When
there
I
is a
click
link.
it, and I said you have to send a request to the author.
Oh, well, there's a link. down so you can just download it.
Perfect.
So I'll send it to you. Anyhow, so that's
Yeah, the title is like how to demonstrate service learning. Is that how to the assessment of?
yeah, it's called Science of Storytelling.
Storytelling.
How should we record and report research on service learning?
Yeah.
And I talk about some of the limitations of doing survey research and the fact that service learning and experiential learning is kind of a dynamic process.
Yeah. So talking about the dynamic process, is there like longevity, like research or assessment about the student's transformation? Because
Right, and if you read in the book, John Dooley, who's the old man, he's
Yeah.
98 years old. He had a project in the 1960s, and then he, 20 years later, met with those students to do a follow-up kind of thing. There aren't very many of those kinds of longitudinal studies of impact.
So that's in your book, that book, the
That's it,
first chapter.
Yeah. It's in Dooley's chapter. And he's one of the two people who coined the term service learning. So they talk about the values component, that there's a values element. I just had a call from a state legislator here in Minnesota. And they had a student from Singapore information, and they were talking about special education,
Oh, okay.
and we're concerned that in Singapore they really don't pay much attention to special education and special students.
Yeah. I mean, the
Same in China.
thing, yeah. I mean, we try to like.
I said some schools do a little bit, but it's not. It's much more central. Certainly in Singapore, much more centralized education. Well, when the government says this is what you teach, everybody teaches it.
Like no one left behind policy.
No child left behind. Yeah.
Now
Although
it's,
Singapore has changed, this young man that I work with who lives in New Zealand, Siva, he came here and actually did his master's in youth development in our program. But he's helped start a program called Values in Action, which is about moral development and dealing with values, values education. So some of the service learning that's going on in Singapore connects to the values initiative. Let's see if I can find citations, because I have some articles in a few books in Singapore. I did a study of their teacher education program.
so how does the system or the government support teacher development in service learning? Is there like a
In Singapore, they have a course, it's a required course. This was, when did I do the study? 2009, I think it's still going, called Group Endeavors in Service Learning. Group Endeavors, and so they work in teams.
Okay.
And and they work on service projects in the schools. So in my study, it's an interesting program because it's mandated. They have to take the course, but the course doesn't count for credit,
Oh.
and the faculty don't get credit for teaching it.
Oh no.
So it's kind of like extra volunteer,
Okay.
but it's required. And what I talked about was the program tends to teach them more about working in a group than it does about service learning.
Well, to do service learning, you should work in a group, but not working in a group in service learning.
But many of their projects are not very long term. So that's why the service learning they don't get. Most of the programs that call themselves service learning are really community service.
Yes, yes. It's just volunteering. It's not really service learning.
It's hard for people to learn how to integrate the academics. Again, in my story, when I was just, it's a matter of luck. Of course, I say that in the book. A chance to the dance or happenstance. I was involved in the 1970s in this program called Experience-Based Career Education. And so you would tell me, I would ask you as a student, what do you love to do the most? Then you would answer by saying, what do you love to do the most?
Me?
You. If you didn't have to work or go to school or do anything, what would you love to do the most?
I like to listen to people's stories and then write it down and spread it around so that more people can know the value of ordinary people and their life matters.
So you're just interested in the life experience of people?
And then through this interview or conversation with them, I think my world enlarged. And I think everyone needs to have a place in this world, but instead our media or government cares more about the important people, or the people that are more famous, like our seniors and also people that seems invisible in this society. They do have some values, definitely, and then I want them to shine. Yeah, so that's kind of.
So what I would do if you were in my program, we might start by saying, let's have you interview older people and people your own age to see if there are any similarities in their story. And you might ask them, what do they like to do the most? Who is most influential in their life?
So when you ask those students, do they really have the answer of what do they like the most? Or they just, I don't know. What if they say, I don't know? Like most of the kids that don't really have an interest when they're young. Apart from
one of my University of Minnesota students who's working on my project for the League of Women Voters and trying to understand youth voice. We just interviewed four girls at a high school. And all four of them talked about, when we said, what's the major challenge in your life? It was mental health. They said that they just are so confused and social media.
Now or
just now.
Oh, no.
Just last week.
Oh.
No, this week.
Okay.
No, wait. Last week. This is Monday. Last week. How social media has made them kind of crazy. But going into this experience-based career education model, two of the four girls said, when people ask me when I was interested in, just like you said, I'd say, I don't know. I'd like to explore some things. I don't know really what I want to do. But somehow people think I'm already supposed to know what I want to do. And that creates stress. So one of the things that I advocate is that youth-led evaluation where kids get to talk about things that are of interest to them, to develop their passion. What do you like to learn? What do you want to get involved in?
This experiential-based career education is still going on. So what's
not the big national initiative that it did, but the career education, I was the internal evaluator for the National Research Center for Career and Technical Education. It was here at the University of Minnesota and moved to the University of Louisville. When I moved to Louisville, that's when I got involved. Although my doctoral study was developing a high school for health sciences, so I was looking at careers, how kids could explore careers and work in a medical center.
So what is the approach of the experiential-based career learning? So if you after you interview the students, what kind of support, what kind of program will they join?
Well, they'll say in a more traditional high school that they don't have any programs. They just have their regular classes. Whereas in my program in the 1970s, I would say to you, your interest is sociology, how people work together, so that would be one of the major academic areas. Also in psychology, people develop mental state. We would do an international piece and say, what do the kids in China say? What do the kids in Singapore say? What do the kids in Indonesia say? Sri Lanka? And in the United States, in Alabama, some of the southern ones. Trying to get some sense, is there a general experience that young people have growing up? Or there are things that are very unique to regions, to countries. I mean, Asian culture is different than Western culture. Very much family-oriented.
So you got the data from different countries, or?
Well, I'm just saying that's what I would be. I'm describing what I would have you do if you were my student in this program.
Because I would love to know how people, the youth in different countries are thinking about, what they're passionate about, what they're worrying about, what is their dream,
And there are studies. Again, the one thing you learn from being old is that everything's already been done 10 times. So partly you would find studies of kids in Indonesia, kids in Beijing, kids in many of the provinces in China. Say, what's the difference between living in the north and living in the south in China? Or the rural experience in China versus the urban experience.
So if the students are interested in like social science, social studies, they would go for such project, or they're encouraged to research.
Well, what I'm saying for you, if you were my student, I would be developing these courses for you. And the courses would be dominating in sociology, but language arts, in terms of interviewing, writing, so you'd be writing reports. Again, you could do history. What's the history of young people in the 18th century? What did they talk about? So you'd have to find some research, and you'd have to find out what literature listed.
So each student have their own individual project.
It would all be individualized instruction. Or, as I found, some of the kids had similar interests, so then they could work together.
Do you think that service learning, because what you have been doing is within the school system, right? So after school program, what if we have kids from different ages?
Yeah, no, they do that. I mean, I was on the board for the University YMCA, and they support a lot of after-school programs, a lot of tutoring programs, like the Boy Scouts and the Girl Scouts, doing service projects.
So do they really link to the academic learning goals?
They tend not to. That's been part of the challenge. It's just in a conversation that we had at that meeting, when I was talking to the man who ran that program on shoes. So you donate shoes, they sell the shoes, and then they feed the poor. He had no idea when I was talking about the chemistry and the physics that you could learn from how you manufacture shoes. What happens to a cow when it's killed? What is leather? How is leather processed? What chemicals are used to process it? What kind of machines do you use to sew? Those kinds of things. So it would be taking the notion of a shoe as a center and study the physiology of the foot. Are we better off with shoes or not without shoes? Early people didn't have shoes. I know my daughter is a marathoner and reading some of the books about running and marathons. There are some people in South America and Mexico who are native people who run barefoot. They don't think shoes are good for you. Imagine running 20 miles with no shoes. They do. So it could be, for you, what's the footwear available in China?
All kinds of
Different than the United States. Because now all the United States shoes are made in China anyhow. But the market could be different. The style of a shoe. So we would get into that. We could get into art. You could have a whole course in art on how do you design shoes. What's an attractive shoe? You said you had an interest in marketing. How do you sell shoes? The things that are important to people. Is it the price? Is it color? Is it how it feels? So you could study all of those things, and you would be going out and doing the research and reading the research that's being done. Because the shoe companies do all of that.
Do you think that the requirement for teachers in service learning or educators in service learning is higher than other fields? Because if you have to be knowledgeable about the social issues and how it can.
The problem, I've done a couple of studies of teacher education and service learning, not only in Singapore but here, and I think the biggest challenge is that most people you learn service learning by doing it. So when I did the study and I talked about from the teacher's perspective and the faculty, you want to go outside? Do you want to start? Is this part? You want to do the interview?
Yes, let's do it. Let's do it.
From the community person's perspective, they said the teachers don't quite understand how you learn in the real world. And the faculty claimed that if they were going to do a teacher ed program, they would just need to take their regular course in the psychology of education and add a little piece on service learning. And so they were still staying in the theoretical area. The community people were very much in the hands-on. So you needed both. So my recommendation is the first course was to do a service learning project. So I would take you as a new teacher and say, I want you to come up with a whole program around your passion, which is storytelling. And so you would do that. And you would say, you can study physiology. How do we talk?
How do we what?
How do we talk? Does our tongue help with our pronunciation? How does the brain work? I always say, I'm looking at you. How come my eyes can tell me what you look like? So you get into the biology of conversation. Those kinds of things. So
the teacher has to.
So you have to keep bringing in the academics. That's always been the challenge. Is that most teachers don't know how to bring in the theoretical. Because I have an article called "Taking Community Service Seriously," and it ends by saying, "Service without a learning dimension is disservice." Just because
service without what?
Without a learning dimension is disservice. Just because you have a grandmother doesn't mean that you know how to work with older people. You need to study gerontology. If you're going to work with young children, you should be studying young children, not just assuming that everybody knows how to work with children. All right, so we'll go to your interview. Need to be people.
Otherwise, I waste the food. I don't want to do that.
There's some big projects in the United States about wasting food.
Oh, I think that's a huge problem. Thank you. Lovely day. Over there?
Just watch it be in the sun.
Oh, by the way, that's a gift for you.
It can't help but like
Yeah. That's a. You know what that is? What it's used for?
Because,
because I feel like they could like work together because they're like both close and like I feel like they're a good like combo. And he's like so encouraging. I feel like you need Chloe when you need like to dig deep and have to be grit, you know. So yeah. But so I don't know. They were just back to the business. I was like, of course. They're like, yes. Like, can you come in? Thanks. I was like, okay.
Yes. Yeah, that bookmark. I think you will have tons of book where you can place. Sure.